Community. My name is Elizabeth Parks and I'm the president of Parks Associates, a market research and consulting firm focused on emerging consumer technologies. Since 1986, we've been looking closely at emerging products in the home for consumers, consumer devices and services like home security and automation, connected entertainment, connected health, and broadband services in the home. This year would have been our 24th year to host our signature event, Connections, the premier connected home conference. We would also be hosting our 15th annual Connections Europe event in November in Amsterdam. While it's an enormous disappointment that we can't host our in-person events this year, we know they play a huge role in networking, visibility for leading players in the smart home space, and interacting with our analyst team and key players. In place of these events, we're bringing you the Connections Community, a virtual experience that will take place through the end of November. We will be live streaming our analysts, industry leaders, and hosting panel discussions through the SwapCard platform, where attendees can log in for live viewing, view past recorded sessions, and interact with fellow Connections community participants during our live sessions. We want to thank our sponsors of our events, many of whom have supported our efforts for years. We really are striving to bring individuals together to network and communicate about the important issues our industries are facing, particularly as we all navigate the new way to accomplish things. Our Connections community platform allows for a live stream view and conversations with our community members. You can ask questions, chat with the group, chat with individuals, and even have a video meeting spontaneously with community members. Following the session, we'll have open networking discussions on video for more dialogue with our analyst team and community members. We have already had some great sessions on the platform as part of the Connections community experience. If you're just joining us, or if you missed a previous session, you can go back on the agenda calendar to watch these on demand. These virtual experiences lead up to 3 days of networking fun, where Parks Associates will present a state of the smart home market, the value in elevated user experiences, monitoring and expansion beyond security systems, smart home platforms, seniors and technology, and the impact of new technologies focused on proactive and predictive analytics, as well as the impact of 5G and Wi-Fi 6. We are proud to bring together over 1,000 executives so far, with more members joining daily. Our team looks forward to your feedback. For any comments or interest in learning more about visibility options or speaking, please reach out to me or any of our team members. Use the question tab to ask your questions or to upvote your favorite questions from other attendees. You can also answer polling questions under polls to give your live vote. Our analysts and panel speakers will be addressing your questions and the polling answers during the live stream. Ask your questions early in the presentation, as our analysts will choose the most upvoted questions to be addressed by the session speakers. If you have any questions during the stream about SwapCard, our team is standing by to help. Just drop a message in the chat or message one of Parks Associates team members via the Parks Associates company page. We want to make sure you're connecting with our industry-leading sponsors in the smart home space. You can visit any sponsor during the session by navigating to the Sponsors tab, browse sponsors, or bookmark the ones that interest you for later. Contact the sponsor via chat, view uploaded documents, watch welcome videos, and more. Have you created your personal event agenda on SwapCard? Go to the Agenda tab, view different sessions under each date, add the sessions that interest you to your personal event agenda. You can access your personal event agenda by clicking the My Event tab. Export your agenda to your calendar to receive reminders and a direct link to your registered sessions. Our latest research shows that between Q1 2019 and Q1 2020, intention to purchase a smartwatch rose from 13% of US broadband households to 20%. Over the past several years, we've seen innovations in technology that have ignited the imaginations of many, with consumer wellness devices increasingly encroaching into the medical space by monitoring an increasing number of vital signs. The most notable additions to date include high and low heart rate notifications, EKG detection of abnormal heart rhythms, and blood pressure monitoring. With an ongoing pandemic situation, the ability to track these metrics and be notified in the case of abnormalities may be extremely valuable to many. Tech giants in the consumer space are also beginning to make inroads into the medical market. COVID-19 has accelerated many emerging solutions in the healthcare space, especially use and familiarity of telehealth services. We anticipate increased use of medical devices in the short and near term, ultimately leading towards long-term increased usage. As consumers integrate connected devices and services ever more deeply into their lifestyle, they bring the same expectation and desire to their health and well-being. We anticipate more changes to come in 2020 as consumers adapt to being at home more, consider new ways to exercise as a result of limited gym time, and pay closer attention to medical issues. Thank you for joining us to learn more.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the last session of the day. This session will cover the topic of independent living, looking at seniors and also the chronically ill. I'm Kristen Hannock, a senior analyst here at Parks Associates. I'm MS MPH, and I've been covering this space since I first started working at Parks a little over 5 years ago. Before we get started, I'd like to give a special thank you to our great sponsors for making this event possible. So for the next few hours, we are going to take a look at really what has changed in the independent living space. As we're all aware, COVID-19 and the COVID-19 pandemic has had a large impact on seniors and other at-risk populations, as well as the businesses that serve them. I'm going to take around 20 minutes to set some context around the topic of independent living, talking about some of Parks Associates' consumer survey data on the subject, as well as senior technology adoption, the lifestyle changes that COVID-19 has really thrust upon seniors, and also some of the challenges and opportunities that are existing in this market. Afterwards, we're going to hear from Dr. Rodney Harrell, Vice President of Livable Communities and Long-Term Services and Supports at AARP. Afterwards, we will be talking about technology, usability, and access with regards to seniors. It's a really great lineup of panelists. Emily Carignan with Aerial Technologies, Rich Hasselden with Essence, Sarah Jones with Best Buy Health, and Karsten Russell-Wood with Philips. We will be reserving around 15 minutes for questions at the end of our panel, so make sure to get your questions in ahead of time. There's a little chat box to the right of your screen with Q&A on it. That's what you're going to want to use. But finally, we'll end our day with networking discussions in private chat rooms. So yes, independent living. 2020 has seen some very dramatic changes in terms of senior lifestyles and well-being. The COVID-19 pandemic has exposed seniors' vulnerability, as well as some of the challenges of caregiving remotely. We've seen many players across the market, from device manufacturers, monitoring providers, home health agencies, telehealth companies and insurers, and many others, respond by offering new solutions that help the oldest consumers live well and safely at home. As we all know, in terms of hospitalizations and mortality, COVID-19 has had a very disproportionate impact on the senior population. According to the Centers for Disease Control, roughly 8 out of 10 COVID-19 deaths in the US have been among those ages 65 and older. Of course, 65 isn't necessarily old, and grouping all individuals age 65 plus tends to hide a bit. But even breaking things out, we can see that seniors as a whole are at higher risk of hospitalizations and death than younger consumers. The risk dramatically rises for older seniors in particular, with those aged 75 to 84 and 85 and above at much higher risk than those in the 65 to 74 group. This is due to a number of different factors. The immune system, of course, overall slows down as we age. However, seniors also tend to have much higher rates of chronic conditions and comorbidities, which puts them at higher risk. This again emphasizes the high and special needs of this population. The risk of COVID-19 infection, hospitalization, and death has had a multitude of impacts on the senior community this year. The risk has been particularly high for those living in senior living facilities. Back in May, a study by the Kaiser Foundation found that nursing homes and assisted living facilities were accounting for some 40% of all virus-related COVID-19 deaths in the United States. Data collected from the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, CMS, has since then indicated that this has not really gone down, with U.S. nursing home residents accounting for 41% of all COVID-19 deaths in July. Shelter-in-place and social distancing measures aimed at protecting seniors are effective. However, these measures also exacerbate social isolation and loneliness, which has been a well-known issue among the senior population for quite some time. The burden of COVID-19 isn't just falling on seniors, but also family members who help provide care and support to their loved ones. Earlier this year, these family members faced the challenge, and continue to face the challenge, of figuring out how to care for their loved ones without potentially exposing them to the virus. On the part of seniors and families, this disease has really been the impetus for adopting new connected solutions and technologies. I'll provide a bit more context around family caregiving and independent living in the United States. As mentioned previously, Parks Associates regularly surveys heads of U.S. broadband households on various topics, including telehealth and independent living. We ran a study back in May of this year directly on this subject. As of May 2020, around 20%, or 1 in 5, heads of U.S. broadband households either currently provide care to an elderly loved one or expect to do so within the next 5 years. 9% currently provide care, and 11% expect to do so shortly. Note that these are just respondents who respond to the word caregiver. There are many more who provide help to their elderly loved ones from time to time in some form or fashion, but may not identify as caregivers. On average, most of the loved ones being cared for are around age 80. Those who expect to provide care within the next 5 years mostly expect to do so when their loved one reaches 80. Around 62% of the seniors actively being cared for, or who are expected to be cared for within 5 years, live either alone or with others such as a spouse. A bit over 1 in 4 live with their family caregiver. I mentioned surveying heads of U.S. broadband households. This includes senior heads of households as well. One of the questions we've asked our senior respondents about is what aspects of retirement life they find important. Unsurprisingly, we found that seniors as a whole are keenly interested in various aspects of retirement life, really irregardless of which age group they fall into. Independent living is, of course, extremely important to many people, but so is staying active, both mentally and physically, and ensuring that loved ones don't need to worry about their health and safety and overall well-being. Seniors place less emphasis on being socially active than being independent, which may be to their detriment, as social interaction is very vital to people's health and well-being and overall quality of life. As we're all aware, not all seniors are able to live independently. However, many do. There is a wide spectrum of various levels of independence across the cared for population. Among those who are cared for or who will be cared for within 5 years' time, again, generally ages 75 to 80 or older, around 79% continue to live independently. Breaking this down, we see that 42% are able to live more or less completely independently, and 37% need some help to do so. A smaller percentage, around 6%, live independently but likely shouldn't, and around 15% do not live independently. A family caregiver may provide all sorts of different types of support from a loved one. This can include various types of tasks, such as helping with getting groceries, doing housework, paying the bills, handling financial matters, driving the senior around to where they need to go, helping arrange doctor's appointments, and also checking in to make sure that they're safe, healthy, and happy. But it also includes more in-depth tasks, such as helping seniors with their daily living activities. That, of course, included this year as well. Circling back to the topic of COVID, we saw that when COVID-19 first struck, many family caregivers were really highly concerned about the disease and its impact on their loved ones. It's actually caregivers' number one concern this year, eclipsing even ongoing health issues, accidents and emergencies, disability and mobility issues, and cognitive decline. Historically, these issues have been at the top of caregivers' priority lists, with many caregivers either being concerned or very concerned about them. And of course, they continue to remain threats even as COVID-19 cases continue to grow across the US and across the globe. In terms of protecting their loved one from COVID-19, earlier this year, many caregivers were unsure about how best to go about this. Quite a few caregivers took concrete steps to protect their loved ones, while many considered all kinds of various options. This included steps such as purchasing solutions that would better help their loved one to communicate with others. For example, setting up video calling solutions such as smart displays with cameras, and also purchasing solutions that would help them to monitor their loved one's health. We also saw some people delay moving their loved one into a community or facility, and some people even removed their loved one from such places. Again, nursing homes and assisted living facilities have been particularly dangerous for seniors this year, with studies by the Kaiser Foundation and CMS both finding that residents of these facilities account for between 40 to 41% of COVID-19 deaths. In terms of seniors' own reactions to COVID, we saw a lot of adherence to the social guidelines, as well as an increased willingness to try out new solutions and new behaviors. During the early phases of COVID-19, many seniors really just stayed at home. Those age 75 and older were more likely to shelter in place than those 65 to 74 and younger, reflecting the fact that older individuals are at greater risk. In May, around 2/3 of those age 75 plus were either sheltering in place or strictly isolating themselves, while another quarter were social distancing. So during this time, quite a few seniors were spending extended time indoors and mostly not really going anywhere. This meant that seniors weren't visiting people, weren't going shopping, weren't going to see the doctor. However, seniors still had needs: a need to socialize, a need to stay entertained, a need to get groceries and other household goods, and a need to take care of their health. In order to address these needs, seniors leaned on their family members, but they also turned to technology. We saw record use of many types of technology. For example, we saw record use of over-the-top video services by people of all age groups, but particular growth in the 65 plus segment, with OTT video subscriptions increasing 5 percentage points year over year for those age 65 plus. Another particularly interesting area is telehealth service usage. As per Parks Associates consumer surveys, use of telehealth video visit services more than quadrupled among those age 65 plus compared to 2019, driven by changes in Medicare reimbursement and the rollout of remote visit functionality by seniors' existing physicians. Health insurers and telehealth services also moved quickly to support this cohort, communicating with their members that these visits were covered. We saw telehealth specialist companies rapidly move to support Medicare Part B, with Doctor On Demand very quickly rolling out a solution soon after the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid expanded Medicare telehealth reimbursement. Another trend we saw was increased use of new technologies for communication. We saw nearly 1/3 of seniors turn to video chat and video conferencing tools, with over half saying that they used these services for the first time this year. This allowed seniors to see their family and friends, even if they may not have been able to visit in person. Overall, this year, we've seen grocery store pickup and delivery services very rapidly expand. Many people didn't and still don't want to shop in person. This held true for seniors as well, with around 1 in 5 of those age 65 plus using a grocery store pickup or delivery service, and almost 2/3 of those using these services for the first time. So certainly, we've seen some changes in really everyone's technology habits, but particularly seniors, with many turning to new solutions out of necessity. What made these changes possible, and what I believe people oftentimes miss, is that today's seniors are much more technologically adept than were seniors 10, 20 years ago. In just the past 5 years, we've seen pretty noticeable increases in smartphone adoption, as well as smart home adoption. Of course, I should state that the numbers shown here are based on Parks Associates surveys of 10,000 US broadband households, so they are reflective of seniors with internet access. That number has also increased relative to where it was 5 years ago. Speaking in terms of smartphone adoption, among US broadband households, over 3 out of 4 of those age 65 and older now own and personally use a smartphone. Almost 2/3 of heads of US broadband households age 80 and older report owning and using smartphones. And this is up from just 21% back in 2015. Smartphone ownership among this age group has tripled in just 5 years, and apps can now be expected to reach a decent portion of the senior population. Increases in smart home ownership are likewise promising. Almost a quarter of those aged 65 to 74 now own smart home products, indicating that demand for home automation solutions with independent living support is likely to rise in the coming years. I mentioned a few minutes ago that we saw senior use of telehealth services quadruple between 2019 and 2020. This is somewhat generational. Younger seniors, much like younger folks overall, reported higher usage of telehealth. Among the 64 to 75 group, almost a third reported using telehealth services. Among those aged 75 and older, this drops down to slightly over 20%. However, this is 20% up from just 3% the year prior, so some fairly phenomenal growth there as well. Looking at the reasons seniors are using telehealth this year, again, we see that many were forced to. The number one reason seniors report for using telehealth was because their doctor would only see them virtually. Other popular reasons included avoiding COVID-19 exposure in physicians' waiting rooms and offices, and also convenience, which has traditionally been the main driver for telehealth. While seniors generally prefer seeing their existing physician, many have also indicated that they're willing to use telehealth again. This is driven by high satisfaction with telehealth services among those age 65 plus. Higher rates of satisfaction than among younger users, in fact. However, even with new tech adoption, there are still challenges to address. In terms of market sizing, the 2019 American Community Survey estimates that roughly 5 million individuals aged 75 and older have difficulty living independently specifically. This is around 1 in 4 of the 75 plus population in total. Other common difficulties include ambulatory difficulties, cognitive difficulties, and self-care difficulties. Around half of the 75 plus population reports at least one issue that impacts their health and well-being. Oftentimes, these difficulties are exacerbated by what I'm going to call built environment issues. For example, many homes are not particularly accessible for aging individuals. Of the 21.5 million homes that the 65 plus population lives in, around 1 in 3 have some type of difficulty using a home feature. For example, wheelchair accessibility, bathroom safety features, and the ability to avoid stairs are commonly lacking in US homes. With so many seniors having ambulatory difficulty in particular, this can be very problematic. Another issue we're seeing is a lack of connectivity in people's homes in general. Parks Associates estimates that as of the end of 2019, almost 15 million US households lacked any type of connectivity, including cellular. While this year we've seen record numbers of consumers add broadband connectivity to their homes, many more millions still lack it. And quite a few of those unconnected households are older and also more rural. According to the American Community Survey, around 1/3 of households aged 65 and older lack any type of internet at home. This makes this population particularly difficult to reach and may require specialized solutions in order to do so. So, in summation, seniors largely turned to technology this year in order to get around the limitations of social distancing and COVID-19. This was enabled by higher senior tech adoption in general compared to 5 years ago. Family caregivers also helped to set up new senior technology, particularly communication tech. Independent living remains a top goal for seniors, as it has for many years. This holds particularly true for today's environment, as the pandemic remains ongoing and various senior-specific communities stand out as epicenters of risk. So there's certainly a very wide open market for different types of solutions. Up next, we're going to hear from Rodney Harrell, PhD and VP of Livable Communities at AARP.
Thank you so much. And that was a great overview of some of the data that we've gotten. I think it leads into a great conversation that we'll have today. What I want to do is to lay out a vision for age-friendly, livable communities and talk to you a little bit about how AARP sees the needs of older adults and how that impacts some of the solutions that we might need while reflecting on some of the issues that we're seeing raised today. So first, what I'd like to do is to start with a quote from our CEO, Joanne Jenkins, that the perceptions of aging are mired in the past. The new reality of aging challenges each of us to recognize that our potential is not depleted with age any more than it is limited by youth. And this idea around the concept of disrupting aging is one that really shapes a great deal of AARP's work in this space. Now, when we get to the idea of communities, we must reflect on some demographic realities and shifts. As you can see on the left, a great part of this country will have people over the age of 65 by 2030. And on the right, you can see a chart from our Census Bureau, which shows that by 2035, for the first time in US history, older adults will outnumber those under 18. And what this means is that we are going to experience a shift for the first time in US history. If you think about building communities in the 1600s, 17, 18, or 1900s, you could build a community for younger populations and not consider that most of your population may be aging. In the 2030s and beyond, this will not be the case. And communities are starting to realize this already. So this demographic change makes it imperative that we look at our housing, our communities, our other products and services differently than we have in the past. And in the case of housing and community development, these processes take decades or many decades, dozens of years to shift housing stock. And so there's tremendous opportunity to try to address those needs today. So let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges. The changes in the population damage us. The communities not being ready, having limited access to community services and amenities, the limited mobility that may come with age, and as this woman is experiencing, the unsafe travel environment that can come when we don't pay attention to the needs of everyone in the community. And finally, there can be a lack of housing options and the kind of options that help people do what they want to do. We mentioned this a little bit earlier, but when AARP looks at what older adults want, we focus on the fact that the vast majority of older adults want to stay in their homes or communities as long as they can. As you can see here, that's nearly 7 out of 10 of those 50 plus, and the numbers go up as we get older. Older groups want to stay home at even higher rates. And why do they want to stay in their homes and communities? They want to stay in those homes and communities because they have grown up there. Their families are there, their memories are there, their social connections are there, and they built some sense of community there. And frankly, often your own home is your only opportunity to stay in your community. And so that's the challenge that we face, that people do not want to be in a nursing home or other long-term care facility if they don't need to be. But we need to figure out ways to help them make their homes and communities work for them better. And so what brings us to this online version of this meeting are the challenges of COVID. COVID's done a few things. It's exacerbated existing socioeconomic challenges. We know that certain groups aren't receiving the same access to housing, same access to services and other features that benefit them. And COVID has revealed that those gaps, those challenges can become deadly and really can impact people's lives. Along with COVID comes this economic impact and the job loss that comes. And all of those things greatly impact vulnerable populations. And so what we know is that some of those short-term solutions that we may have relied upon are no longer sufficient. And so that brings us to nursing homes. And here's a clip from our latest nursing home COVID dashboard. And as of that last dashboard, over 84,000 staff and residents of nursing homes have died from COVID. And that tragedy that's in our nation's nursing homes has brought to the forefront the idea that perhaps we do need a wider range of housing options, that perhaps we need to rethink the role of nursing homes in our aging population and how we house older adults. And so my hope is that that conversation invigorates the ideas of discussing housing solutions. And caregivers. Family caregivers came up earlier, and caregiving in the US shows that we now have 53 million people providing caregiving for people of all ages in 2020, and that's 21% of the population. And so the idea that not only should we pay attention to our needs as we age, but those of us who are taking care of one another are key to the process. I call family caregivers the keystone of long-term care. The idea that they are asked to do more to make up for the gaps in our system. While they're doing so, all of the caregivers are learning about the issues and challenges of aging, and hopefully a few solutions that may be useful for themselves one day. So caregivers are a key population in understanding, helping, and perhaps implementing change. And so what's the way forward? Our vision of livable age-friendly communities. The definition's on screen here. The idea is that a livable community should have the housing and transportation and other options and the services that help people of all ages, all levels of physical ability, and all incomes to stay and age in the communities of their choice. And so the idea being that we should bring these community features where they don't exist today. No community is fully livable, but the idea is that we can help communities improve on what they have. And to get there, what does that look like? For us, a livable community is a place with housing options, different amenities and destinations for people to visit, libraries, parks, access to healthy foods, exercise opportunities, and the like, and the ability to get around to the places they need. We're talking a lot about housing and things within the home today, but we can't forget about mobility options. People want to be part of communities. We have to design not only for independence within the home, but independence to live where you want to, in a place that meets your needs. And for those that want a conceptual kind of framework to all this, this guides a lot of our understanding about how people end up in the neighborhoods they do. People have their preferences for neighborhoods. We all want to find things that work for us, but we're limited. We're limited by often the budget or the availability of options in our community. And so those limitations can make a certain home or community not work as well for you as it does for me. And the idea is that the interventions we have can help improve and address some of those limitations, which in turn lead to our final community locations. The idea is that through policy change, other changes, and the like, that we can help improve the choices that people have and are able to make. In short, every housing choice requires a trade-off. There aren't any perfect communities. There aren't any places that are 100% livable, but we must have the solutions that intervene in that process so that we can help those home and communities that we haven't designed for aging over these many years, decades, and centuries. And so, let's talk about some of the solutions. Smart home tech has the ability to bridge some of those gaps. The idea that those lines between assistive tech for aging that were specialized devices in the past that only had one particular service, and the idea that some of these smart speakers and other home tech can achieve some of the goals that people have in their homes is a big change. There are opportunities for technology to help address some of those challenges and overcome those gaps. We need those solutions to give net benefits. We need to protect the privacy and security of all people using it and be useful for people of various means. And while there's great promise in these devices, one challenge does remain, and that is the access to high-speed internet, which certainly is not universal and not at a cost that many people can afford. But there is great potential in having these options address some of those needs. And as our last speaker mentioned, there has been a turn to tech from older adults. These statistics from Parks Associates show us that online video services have gone up. The video conferencing tools and telehealth and grocery store pickup and delivery. This is not just for younger folks. Older adults are using these services in this year of COVID and change as well. And so the misconception that older adults aren't using those services is something that we should address and really overcome. Today's older adults are more technologically adept than in years past, and you can see here the smartphone adoption rates. You see how high they are, well over 50% for all of the older age groups, well over 3/4, frankly, in 2020. And you see that change in time over the last 5 years. So we see that there's great potential there as well. And finally, in telehealth, we've seen an impressive growth over the last few months that often people are finding out that they're forced to move into these options, that the doctor would only see them virtually, or they're afraid of COVID exposure. But often it's just the convenience that the idea that this technology might be easier than going. And those are the shifts that might stick beyond COVID. So the idea that we need to explore these new ways of doing things is something else to think about as well. I find it interesting that many are willing and interested in using telehealth again after they've used it, not just because they've had to. Now, for ARP, we have a great focus on expanding housing options. Key part of our portfolio looks at doing what we can to make housing work for people of various means in various locations and with various needs. I'll just highlight a few of them now. One of our future of housing projects was this home in Memphis, Tennessee, that was the subject of a design challenge that we undertook to try to create an ageless home, knowing that we have over 100 million existing homes in the country. When we look at maybe devices in the home, we also need to look at how we remodel the homes themselves before we even think about what might exist in the new homes. And so this idea was to take a standard home and to see what we could do to make it useful for people of any age. We have a large look at accessory dwelling units. These are sometimes known as in-law suites or backyard cottages or other names. The idea being that we need to do things to transform our existing housing stock and look at ways to bring in new housing options in existing communities that may be near to those parks and grocery stores and medical facilities and other things that I've mentioned earlier that people would like to be near. And our livability index. It's the world's first nationwide neighborhood-based livability index. And we use this to try to do two things: to influence policy change in communities and provide information for all. This gives you a score for every neighborhood across the country to tell you how livable it is for people of all ages, all incomes, and physical abilities. And so the idea is that we know that we need to provide more information both to people, to policymakers, and frankly, others that are looking for change in communities so they understand what they need and what they can change. And our AARP network of age-friendly states and communities. Over 490 communities have joined a network where they've committed to over a 5-year period of planning, learning, and understanding the gaps within their for the older population, and then working to overcome those gaps with actions. So we try a range of things in our livable communities approach of these and other programs to look at communities and really address some of those gaps that I discussed earlier. The idea being that we can, by addressing those gaps, we can start to create livable, age-friendly communities that have those options that people need. Providing more options ensure that we have communities for all people of all ages, regardless of their age, income, race, factor, or other characteristics. We want everyone to have access to a livable community. And finally, I want to leave you with this thought. At AARP, we think of ourselves as everyday innovators in aging. And I challenge all of you to think of yourselves in that way too. We need great large-scale challenges and large-scale changes to accommodate our aging society. And we need smaller-scale, more immediate changes as well. We shouldn't design just for the old. We should design for all. Bring in joy, beauty, connection. We often hear folks talking about ease of use, convenience, and affordability, but also making communities work for people with laughter, beauty, and social connection, whether it's virtually or in person, for people of all ages. There are no silver bullets to addressing our aging challenges. That means that there are opportunities for innovation in every space. We need to work on long-term challenges, short-term challenges, and find the solutions that fit communities in the way that we need. It's a challenge that I'm happy to accept, and I hope that all of you are too. So I want to thank you all for your attention during this time. I hope that I've shared some things that are useful. On your screen now, they'll leave a few links to the many things I spoke about, that one at the top being the key link for all of AARP's resources. And I'm happy to answer any questions if we have time, or to lead to our next discussion.
Thank you, Rodney, for that great overview of AARP's livable communities kind of work and different statistics. We do actually have quite a few questions from our audience. If you would like to spend a few minutes answering them. So I think it's a lot of things that they find interesting. So one of the questions that has come up is looking at what partnerships AARP is considering in order to meet your community goals. Really, how big a part is technology playing in terms of building and creating these livable communities?
A great question. And so we have two answers to that. One, that AARP's Innovation Lab is doing some great work on some of the technological innovations and partnering with different groups that might have technological solutions. One of the more recent ones is our Home Fit augmented reality app that's come online recently, helping people understand some of the features in their homes, whether they need things like lever door handles or other features that might be easier for use. So we've got that side of AARP that's looking at the kinds of products and services that can help people. From our livable communities kind of action side of things, we're working with communities across the country through that age-friendly communities program and others that I've discussed, or even more that I haven't discussed, but to bring to communities and other partners together at the table to figure out what can be done. So I'd say that we're in a partnership business. We know that we are not, our country is not a place where only one group can solve all of the issues. And so we certainly want to help communities and even our own work to work with other groups to make that happen.
Yeah, very, very interesting. We have another question asking really what role you see smart technology have in assisting the elderly and chronically ill in terms of maintaining and improving care within their communities.
Yeah, I think that there's such great potential in smart home tech, but my big fear is that we will design smart home tech for other audiences, for younger folks, for younger families, for others, without considering the need of older adults, the need to memorize a range of commands. I know it frustrates me with my smart speaker device. And so as an example of this, so what are the ways that we can ensure that when we're developing something for the wider population, we take on principles of universal design? And universal design is something that guides a lot of our work. The idea that it's not just focusing on something for older adults that limits the market, but providing devices and services and housing and other things that work for all people, regardless of their age, regardless of their level of physical ability, bringing in the alternate options that would help different folks use those devices. So I see that on the large scale market side, while there's still going to be a role for specialized assistive devices that help address certain needs. But there's such great potential to make some of these smart home tech advancements work for people of all ages.
Okay. And then circling back around to universal design, do you have a sense of maybe how common it is among new housing to actually have these design principles put into place? Or is this really more being targeted to 55 plus housing?
Yeah, unfortunately, we did some recent research with the Harvard Joint Center to get at how some of these livable features or how livable communities are distributed. And one of the things we cite in there is some of their earlier work that shows that basically 1% to 2% of homes have a range of features that are set up for aging. So the challenge we have is that vast majority of homes just don't have all of the features that people need as they're aging. So that's what gives the opportunity, that gap in there, that your home may have 1 or 2 features that may support you. There may be wide hallways, or you may have 0-step entrances. But now you need to get around the fact that your light switches or kitchen counters are maybe not useful for you. So what are the tech solutions that might help to overcome those challenges? Maybe it's a meal delivery service. Maybe it's a device that can work your light switches and other devices by voice. But as an example of the idea that we know we've got the housing stock we have, we put 400 years into a housing stock and community stock that are made mostly for younger populations. So let's look at that wide range of solutions to try to solve some of those issues.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and we have, of course, also seen the emergence of certain companies that are working to actually change certain aspects of the housing and make housing more livable for seniors. I have another question looking at venture capital and specifically with regards to senior tech. So the sum total of venture capital dedicated to senior tech in the U.S. has been less than 100 million, which is a small percentage of venture capital funding overall. Not a ton of this has been aimed at independent living. Is AARP working to help bring additional capital to bear in order to positively impact the community goals?
That's a great topic and question. I'm not quite the venture cap person at AARP, so I couldn't answer where those investments are looking in the future. But I will say this generally speaking, and that's that, when I came to AARP 12 years ago, when I talked to communities, to housers, to other folks across the country, it was very rare for them to pay attention, to know that there were needs of aging. The demographic slides and others that I showed you were brand new to folks. Now, 12 years later, there's a wide and growing knowledge of that being the case. So that progress has made me understand that I think there's a great opportunity for both the market, for policy, and even for individual consumer interactions and purchases to really reflect that people are starting to understand the population's aging, and we need to adjust what we're doing to that. So I do think there's great potential there on a personal level.
Okay, so maybe some opportunity in the market that the venture capitalists haven't quite caught on to just yet.
I think so. They should catch up with the needs for sure.
Yes. So circling back around to AR/VR, you mentioned an AR solution that AARP had released. What is your take on the market viability of AR and VR, and also possibly robotics in general, in a community or possibly a home health setting, as it relates specifically towards seniors, I'd say?
I think there's great but limited potential at the same time. And I say that to say that there's great potential in that there are so many possibilities, so many options that work. As I mentioned, we've experimented a little bit with AR, that home fit app, to help people understand some of the things that they need. But also the limitation is knowing that it won't solve all the needs. As I've seen some of the use of technology in other countries and other places, we know that some of those technological solutions just don't work in the same way that a person can, a family caregiver or other that might be there to help support folks. So I see technology as playing a complementary role to many of the long-term supports and services that exist today, that we might be able to chip away at some of those needs that people have, at addressing some of those needs that people have, and reduce the needs for more costly or hands-on forms of intervention. But there's limitless potential in the idea that I don't know what even all of the solutions will be over the next 20, 30 years or more. And I look forward to that. But I also know that we're going to have to keep maintaining the services and family caregiving especially, and those other things that fill in those gaps between the needs that people have and what's available to them.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely interesting. So I think during your presentation, you discussed briefly the impact that lack of internet connectivity had on seniors. We've seen this year an increasing interest among just individuals in general, also some health insurers, in terms of helping to increase internet access among the senior population. So OATS, I believe Older Adult Technology Service, the nonprofit, recently got a fairly successful infusion of cash in order to help them increase and just access to internet among different senior populations. Are you seeing also more of a drive towards that and helping to increase technology use among seniors?
I lost audio for a second there, but I think this is about internet activity and access to technology for seniors. And I'll say that I've seen a greater focus on some of the methods of providing low-cost, high-speed internet access. And I think that's one of those other silver linings of the crisis that we're in, that it's bringing that knowledge to the forefront that people need internet access to do, frankly, many of the regular activities that we used to do, as well as some of the things that are necessities now. And so I'm hopeful that those efforts continue to expand, and I think that they likely will. On the technology front, as some of the stats that we talked about earlier have shown, we know that technology adoption rate is growing for older adults, and so that's positive to see. I want to see people of all ages being able to benefit from some of the solutions that are out there. But simultaneously, we need to make sure that we actually have the training and the user friendliness and the user experiences that ensure that everyone's needs are being met. So progress, I think there's still challenges there.
Yes, I've had conversations with others across this space, and different senior groups have very radically different needs and also comfort levels with regards to technology. So it's very important to meet them where they are.
Yeah, and Krista, that's a great point that I don't know that we talked about this earlier, but the diversity of the older population is really key to understanding here. The idea that, roughly a third of people 65 and older have a physical disability and 2/3 don't. So, when we're designing for older adults, it's not a monolith. There's not just a certain point at which you don't have capacity X, Y, or Z. It's that designing for the older population means that we need to design for a wide range of people with a wide range of needs, physical needs, mental, and other. And so the idea, to me, the ideal is that we would have a range of solutions. We target different pieces of that market, understand those needs, and pick off those challenges one by one. But it's not as simple as saying that, okay, we've just got to check the older adult market off this one magic feature or device.
Yes, especially just given the wide arrangement of age groups that are kind of all combined under the senior umbrella. So you have a 65-year-old is quite a bit different than an 85-year-old.
Absolutely.
And it looks like we have time for a few more questions. So we have an attendee that is interested in the regulatory environment and also reimbursements that may be available for seniors in terms of changing the built structure of their homes. Is that something that you could speak to?
So that's a good question. I think in the regulatory environment, I'd say that there's a couple of things to look out for. One is I'm going to give a plug for our LTSS choices work that's coming soon. You'll see some work from Susan Reinhardt and our team and others on assistive devices, and the idea that Medicaid can have possibilities to help with some of those devices in some cases, and in other cases there are other funding sources needed. And with homes themselves, it's a large challenge, frankly. That there's some states have tax credits that can be used for rehabilitation and other supports that can help consumers get these changes made and what's needed to be done. But oftentimes it's seen as an individual action. And so, with the home changes, there's a wide space for new financial solutions to help people afford the changes to their home that they need to support aging.
So certainly a tricky space for seniors to navigate.
It's incredibly complicated, and I'll say this as a housing-focused policy professional, even that's challenging for me, and I rely often on our Medicaid experts and others to even explain that. And so I can't imagine how tough it might be for the average older adult trying to navigate exactly how they can cover these things, especially if they're in that lower income space.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. So there is another attendee that is interested in how connected care is really doing among seniors in general. So I imagine connected here would mean a very wide umbrella, so including telehealth, which we saw very exponential growth in, but also other aspects of connected care, for example, connected devices, maybe connected health devices, and other products that might be available.
Yep, I really see that as a growing area, and frankly, I think there's great potential for continued growth in that wide umbrella that you're mentioning. That I'd like to think that we've actually fast forwarded probably 10 years or more, frankly, in this last year in terms of adoption. And the idea that many of those barriers to adoption we kind of pushed through as a country, as a world, frankly, as we're dealing with COVID. And so I do think that that growth will continue for a while. I don't know at what rate, but the idea that we have to continue in adapting and changing the way that we look at things is I think, set in a large part of the population. And so I see great potential for that continued growth there.
Yes, there's certainly been a very large number of barriers on the regulatory and reimbursement side that have been knocked down. We've seen a much wider willingness to actually try out these new technologies on the part of doctors and hospital systems, but also on the part of patients. They're a lot more willing to try out telehealth and actually accept devices in their homes, which is very, very promising.
It's so promising in the idea that we can have those changes, but at the same time, there's a little voice in the back of my head that's still concerned for people of lower income and that have lower access. The idea that while we've been moving so fast out of necessity in this time, that they may not have the same access again to the internet and the high-speed internet needed, or the funds to pay for some of these devices. And so I think that's something else we must keep an eye on, is the idea that while this has progressed and moved things, especially at the middle and top of the market, those that are having affordability challenges, perhaps even exacerbated by COVID and its economic fallout, that those folks still need solutions as well.
Yes, I think we've seen some interesting movements by the health insurers to help increase accessibility among their population. Most of the movements that we've seen have been on the side of Medicare Advantage, not necessarily the lower cost plans, which of course is again also a challenge. I think we have time. Go ahead.
I was saying that, so definitely something we've been keeping an eye on are those changes, and our policy shop is looking at what could be coming in the future as well.
Yes, I think we're very hopeful with changes to the physician fee schedule and other reimbursement policies. So I think that is, we might have time for one more question. We have an audience member curious to see if the AARP has or is planning expanding beyond the US, for example, into Europe, other markets, Canada, Latin America. I believe you guys are.
Yeah, so we're focused. We're at 38 million strong in the US, and I think that's likely to be the case for the near future. There are some other organizations that are similar to AARP in Europe and some of the European countries and others as well that I know we work with often through our international shop. But as far as I know, we're going to be focusing most of our policies, solutions, programs, the like are focused on the US.
Okay. Well, thank you so very much, Rodney, for joining us for this conference today. Very much enjoyed hearing your talk and also having this Q&A session with you.
Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed the conversation.
Yes, and we'll be back in just a minute or two with our upcoming panel on improving access to smart technology for seniors. Thank you all. Welcome back, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our last panel of the day on improving access to smart technology for seniors. I have with me today a great lineup of panelists from Aerial Technologies, Essence, Best Buy Health, and Philips. They're each going to take the next few minutes to introduce themselves and their companies. And we're going to hear a little bit about really what great things they've been doing as well. So first up is Emily Carlnian, a Marketing Director for Aerial Technologies. Emily, can you take the next few minutes to tell us a little bit about yourself and what Aerial does?
Yeah, sure thing. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, I'm hearing you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, it's good. So hi, everybody. I'm Émilie Carignan. I'm the Marketing Director of Aerial Technology. We are a small and young startup based in Montreal, Canada, which is a major hub in AI expertise. The mission of the company is to leverage AI and the Wi-Fi connected devices in the home to create what we call sensing intelligence that enables smarter application that improves people's daily lives. To tell you a little bit about the technology, so the beauty of this patent technology is that we are using the existing Wi-Fi in the home to detect and classify motion. So when an object moves through space, it disturbs the Wi-Fi signals. We can compare that to when you were to touch a pond with your finger, it creates ripples. And when you look at those ripples, you don't see an image of the finger, but you can infer that the water was touched. So it's not an invasive image like camera will do, for example. So what we do is we analyze those ripples or the disturbances in the Wi-Fi to create context and infer activities in the home. So what is very disruptive and sometimes hard to believe with this type of technologies is that we don't use any additional hardware. The Wi-Fi in your home right now is literally the sensor. And this solution is already endorsed by industry leaders. So we are happy to have already great partnerships. We believe that the ambient technology, that this Wi-Fi sensing, can democratize access to affordable remote care for elders to live happily and safely at home while giving peace of mind to the caregivers and the family members. I'm very happy to be on this panel today, and I cannot wait to get on all these questions.
Thank you, Emily. It's very interesting hearing about Aerial Technologies technology. So next up, we have Rich Hasselden with Essence. Rich, can you tell us maybe a little bit about yourself?
Hi, everybody.
And also Essence.
Yes, my name is Rich Hazelden. I'm actually the General Manager and Senior VP of Sales for Essence USA. We are a part of a larger company that's based in Israel. The name of that organization is obviously Essence. It was founded in 2013. And we have headquarters our headquarters are in Israel. We have offices in both the US, Europe, and in Australia. And we have global deployments across 25 different countries. We have patented breakthrough products. We've brought many different products to market that have been voice related, as opposed to just being a pendant, because we primarily focus on PERS here in the United States. And one of the latest products that we've brought to the marketplace, in addition to voice triggering, is radar fall detection. So we're very excited about being able to enable a senior to be safe in a home without having to actually press a pendant. While we do have voice, it allows them to be able to be seen through walls and other things and be able to understand if something has taken place in the house. Many of our products are award-winning, and we're one of the fastest growing telecare players around the world. I'm very excited to be a part of this panel. It's something that we're obviously very passionate about, and Essence is a large partner here in the United States, with many of the large PERS providers purchasing our products, and look forward to talking on the panel in a few minutes.
Yes, thank you so much, Rich. We look forward to talking with you as well. It's very great to hear from Essence. So yes, next we have Sarah Jones, VP of Commercial Product at Best Buy Health. Sarah, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and Best Buy's efforts in this area?
Hi, yes, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be on the panel today. I'm Sarah Jones from Best Buy Health. Best Buy Health is part of Best Buy, national retailer. We serve over 1 million seniors today through our senior-focused cell phones, medical alert, sensing technology, remote patient monitoring, and a variety of other technology and service offers that are designed to help enrich seniors' lives and keep them aging healthy in their homes. We're headquartered in Minneapolis and San Diego. And like I said, we serve over 1 million seniors today and get to use all of the good Best Buy technology and capabilities like Geek Squad and in-home advisors, and look forward to talking about how we apply that to seniors today.
Very cool. Thank you so much. So yes, next we have Karsten with Philips. He's a portfolio leader of post-acute care.
So good afternoon. Very good to be here. Certainly it's an auspicious day, 11/11. It's also a day of remembrance as Veterans Day. So want to make sure we recognize those things and also recognize parks for their primary and secondary research that supports our work in industry to expand thought leadership and expand technology adoption. For Philips as an organization, obviously, fairly large global B2B, but also B2C health tech company. We are fully dedicated to providing health and wellness to individuals across the care continuum, and certainly service these with a new focus on the mass migration to the home in the classic home setting, but also in virtualized home settings for retail and senior living. Very excited to be here and share a little bit about our position, but also the thought leadership that we're expanding both from the areas and dimensions of prevention, but also treatment. So thanks again.
Thanks, Karsten, for joining us today, and I'm very grateful to have all of you here with us. I think we're going to have a very interesting panel discussion. So before we get started, I would like to remind all of our attendees that we do have a couple of polls for this session that we're going to be touching back upon. You can see them to the right of your screen under a little tab with poll on it. We are also going to be reserving 15 minutes for questions, so make sure to get those questions in early. The questions with the most upvotes are going to be the ones we will tackle first. So yes. In terms of our panel discussion today, I think it's going to be really great to hear from everyone on really how your businesses have changed as a result of this year. I think Brad earlier today mentioned not wanting to use what he called the U word, unprecedented. I am going to use it. I'm sure you're all sick of hearing this, but COVID-19 has really been an unprecedented time for anyone in the health space or e-commerce, but especially those serving seniors. So how have your companies and your customers been impacted by COVID-19, and how did you react? So I'd like to go in something of an alphabetical order this time. So Emily, can you please kick us off?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we saw is, this immense shift in the priorities of internet and service providers. So a problem that was already there before, which is the aging population and the fact that we don't have a sustainable way to take care of them and their independence, now becomes this huge priority for everybody. So we see this urge of having an accelerated deployment to the user as fast as possible. And we see that from all the industries and all around. Everybody wants to have a remote care solution, and they should, because we all need it. But this is where we see the biggest difference of the before and after COVID will be, before we'll talk about, for us it's Wi-Fi sensing, so we will talk about how we can use those applications to help people live better. And now it's mostly or only about remote care, and how can we help the elders have a good communication with their family and stay healthy and safe at home. So it did a big impact for us, but it also focused all the energy and the effort into delivering a very robust and easy and fast deployment for the remote care. So I would say that this is the biggest transformation that we've seen this year.
Mhm. So yes, certainly a very exciting time.
Yeah, I wouldn't say exciting, but yeah, we don't want to profit on the pandemic, but we do see that there's more allies and there's more people that want to collaborate and to bring a solution to the market.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's definitely a catastrophe, but also an opportunity in many ways for different companies. So Rich, can you tell us a little bit about what Essence has done this year in regards to COVID?
Yeah, absolutely. So many of the customers that we have here in the United States either have large monitoring centers that we work with, or they have large sales and marketing offices that we work with. And many of those folks had to be able to send everybody home, which required an entirely different type of technology. And so we obviously tried to play a role in making sure that we could provide product to those existing customers, but also make sure that we could work with them through their entirely new process, because many of the people we were talking to were now actually at home. From a product perspective, we did a very large initiative at the very beginning of the year to increase our stock and work with our global supply chain. As it became apparent that this was rolling across different parts of the world, we wanted to make sure that we would still be able to provide products in a timely fashion. And what it required was an awful lot of project management from an operations perspective. And to be able to get the products here, because we typically would ship products via air, changed completely exactly how we were going to bring the products in, because everything would have to be shipped by sea. So I think what it's created is a lot tighter relationships and partnerships with our customers. And ultimately for the customers at the end that are obviously using our products, we've created an awful lot of processes in our manufacturing facility to ensure that those products arrived on site in a clean and touchless manner.
Mm-hmm. So certainly a lot of challenges trying to figure out the whole supply chain and different issues with everything going on. Sarah, can you tell us maybe a little bit about what Best Buy Health has seen and also been doing?
Yeah, since we serve seniors, we have seen, as you can imagine, a lot of the most acutely impacted people through the pandemic. And so just from a business perspective, we had some interesting challenges with having 24/7, 365 caring centers, our call centers that deal with emergency response and deal with customer support, having to figure out how to make safe working environments for our staff so that we can continue to support the seniors who are now alone in their homes and actually using the technology much more than they were before. So it was a little bit of a challenge to say, how do we keep our staff safe and also still provide the service in an elevated way to our senior population? And that was interesting. We moved lots of folks home. We had to rapidly iterate on technology in the same way you saw maybe more publicly Best Buy outlets switched from, they quickly launched curbside service, switched a lot of online transacting from in-store transacting. We had to do a lot to just maintain our service levels. And then in the seniors world, obviously they were in the same stay-at-home orders we were. And so we saw some interesting things. Just anecdotally, all of our call times went up. So not only were we trying to say like, okay, how do we manage and keep enough staff in? The people that were calling us were kind of like, how are you? What's going on here? And we could tell that the loneliness and isolation was going up because our call times were going up. People were just really interested in talking. And so one of the things we pretty quickly did was create some abilities to address that social isolation. We started some outbound calling programs with some of the staff that had moved home and had capacity to do some of that work. And we also saw in my part of the world, where we're sort of in the formal healthcare business working with payers and providers, we saw a lot of requests, increased requests for phones, increased requests for medical alert buttons. As services were no longer being able to deliver it in the home, we rose to meet the need through technology, and also generally asking for those telephonic interactions. Can you please help us figure out how to make sure that seniors know they're reassured, that they're safe, that we're identifying problems, that we're helping connect people with resources. And one of the interesting things about those resources is they changed a lot during the pandemic, where store hours changed and there were senior specific hours, and sometimes store hours were different, and food shelves were out and there were new food shelves. And so places where we normally went to find resources were still there, but there were a lot more things to try to figure out. And so it was an opportunity for our team to just use our brains and our hearts to try to say, how would I help this person? I know this is not in my protocol, but what can I do to help serve this person who is maybe not having a medical emergency, but has a social need that I think I can help address? So that's some of the sort of business and human things that we've dealt with this year.
Yeah, certainly a lot of challenges with many seniors having to stay at home for very long periods of time, and still having to stay home for the most part, even with shelter-in-place orders over, and just worsening COVID-19 cases across the U.S. Kirsten, can you maybe tell us a little bit about what Philips has been doing and also been seeing in terms of trends?
Yeah, so absolutely. I mean, Philips is a business, serves hospitals, systems of hospitals, and systems of government, such as the VA. And immediately, what was needed was the ability to respond quickly. What used to be a process of engagement and decision making became a mandate for action, which meant that Philips had to be agile in its response, moving quickly from being an transactional business to being a partner business focused on outcomes and support. We also saw that the populations we served that we needed to focus on were different. We had to focus on chronic disease patients that needed reach and access from their specialists. And so deploying solutions to support them through wearable devices, through chronic disease management programs was imperative. Secondly, we saw patients that were mildly symptomatic COVID positive that didn't need to go to the hospital and impact hospital resources. And there again, bringing technology into the home, to the senior living facility, that would allow them to be monitored safely and confidently without, adding to, the excess surge in the hospital that was critical. And lastly, we had a population that was terrified of going to the hospital, that needed routine procedures and needed routine access to their clinical providers. And for that population, again, making sure that we'd enable access through remote patient monitoring was vital. And lastly, I would mention that we never lost touch of our care providers, the heroes on the front lines that worked hard, that needed help from peers, that needed a break by being supplemented by other staff that may not have been local. And so establishing a national grid of federated telehealth providers really was something to deliver on that promise.
Yeah, certainly a lot of very intense needs among the medical community this year as well. So talking a little bit about the big topic of today, technology and access to technology. We've seen many consumers really increasingly turn to tech to keep themselves informed, entertained, and productive. We saw adoption and use of all types of technology really greatly increase compared to last year. What impact, in your perspective, has COVID-19 had on seniors and family caregivers' use and acceptance of technology? So I think we shared a few statistics beforehand on telehealth, remote video visits among the senior population, really greatly expanding grocery store pickup and delivery, video communication tools, and other aspects. Karsten, what is your kind of opinion on this?
I think they were fueled by their own sense of security and safety needs as the home became the center of life operations for them. I think they were also encouraged by their care network, which may have been their clinical specialists, their PCP, families, neighbors, etc., simply to the goal of not being isolated. And so absolutely a rapid adoption of telehealth and different forms of devices, all supported, thankfully, through policy that the U.S. government, and CMS drove, that enabled these technologies to be deployed and physicians to also contribute their clinical supervision through it.
Yes, lots of promising movements. Emily, could you maybe share your perspective?
Yeah, sure. So we obviously saw a lot of increase even in your statistics in the people using the technology. Really, COVID just shed the light on a problem or a need that was already there and just accelerated it. So it's something that was there before, and I think will stay after COVID, as we are in an aging population that would just keep on growing. What we need to remember as well is that the access to technology comes with this very sensitive conversation that you need to have with a loved one or with your parents, where you need to say, I think it's time for you to have this solution that monitors you. And a lot of people don't want to have this conversation because it's a very hard and sensitive conversation to have. So the thing that they need to keep in mind when they do want to have this type of conversation that is now really needed in this time of pandemic is, one, they need to preserve the freedom of the elder, which means avoiding an intrusive solution in their house or in their lives or habits. They need to enhance rather than take away. So we really want to provide a solution that will empower the elder to stay independent rather than limiting them into changing their habit and be in this discomfort, I would say. And we need to protect them from stigma. So we need to make sure that the solution that we want to give to the elder won't, tag them as, oh, like I have this pendant, I'm old now, I need help. So we don't want to create that. We really want to have this sort of solution that will empower them and make them have a happy and safe life, because that's really the goal of everybody. And I think that this COVID situation just accelerated the need to have this very sensitive conversation with a loved one or with a parent.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think that's definitely true. It's been a very challenging year for family caregivers and seniors in general. Sarah, what is your take on this in terms of looking at senior technology habits changing?
I think the pandemic definitely increased senior and caregivers' use of technology. My friends at AARP gave a trade presentation recently, and they maybe shared it here earlier and I missed it, but talking about people who are over 50 use technology, for live virtual events, for video chats, for remote volunteering, for text messaging. So all things that are, I think, what I would call creating intrinsic value for the senior, those numbers have skyrocketed. And I think, to the earlier point on the monitoring technology and the health technology, we probably have a little bit of way to go. My perspective is that people used it this year because there were no other options and we didn't really know much about the virus yet. And so people were, especially in the early months when you saw telehealth utilization, go up 2,000% in a month. That was the only option. as we learn more and as we progress through the pandemic, I think we'll see an imperative to improve the CX around there, the customer experience. Because to me, the places where we've seen a huge increase is in things that are about connecting to family and connecting to friends and connecting to community. And that stuff has intrinsic value. And health value propositions tend, in my experience, to be a little bit different. And they are more delicate conversations. And so I think we probably have a little bit of work to do to make sure that we maintain the high levels of adoption that we've seen this year and continue to prove value for both seniors and caregivers.
Senior needs to actually find value in the solution if they're going to use it at all. And then are there any other perspectives on this? Before we jump to the next, okay. So really, what are some of the issues you're seeing that seniors and family caregivers are really running into in companies designing solutions that really work well for seniors and their comfort levels? Can you give me maybe some examples? And then Rich, can you maybe start us off?
Sure, absolutely. You know, some of the issues that we see typically are just ease of use. The products aren't necessarily easily installed in a customer's home. They're not necessarily something that a senior can install by themselves. And as a result of not being able to get close to the senior, actually go into the house, you know, there's just a real challenge with complexity that needs to be resolved. You know, I think the bigger issue that we see many times, not just here in the United States, but all around the world, is that the concept of technology and connectivity. Because many of the higher levels of technology actually require, whether it be a broadband product or other, and that's not necessarily always easily accessible to all areas of this population. You know, one of the things that we're really focusing on is really being able to provide products that are available across all economic spectrums. And as a result of that, they'll be able to be used in a much broader manner. You know, we're very proud of the fact that when we create a product and it's produced in our factories in Israel, our solutions arrive touchless in the mail to the senior's home, and they literally just have to plug it in. And so it's very simple, it's very easy to use, and certainly during this time of COVID, it doesn't require an outside influence, which obviously is a very important part for all of us.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think that type of very, very seamless and easy to use solution is definitely important at this time. And then Emily, your solution is also very much like that, the Wi-Fi sensing technology. Can you maybe discuss that a little bit?
Yeah, so I completely agree with the deployment, you know, the installation being a problem and challenge that we see. There's also two other challenge that we see that so Wi-Fi sensing can completely take care of. One being the usability itself. So people here would be more about wearables, but people simply don't wear their pendants, or they will forget to charge them, or they will not wear them in the most dangerous place in the house, being the shower. So we see that people that have the solution like a wearable will simply not use them, or they will have a tremendous human errors that will trigger a false alarm. So people don't really rely on this information because we don't know if it happened or not. So the usability, the technology itself could be amazing, but if the user doesn't know how to use it properly, or if we see a lot of mistakes, that's a huge issue and challenge that we need to address. And the second one would be the cost. So those type of technologies sometimes can be very expensive, and we need to make sure that we create a remote care solution for people that need it, and not just for people that can afford it. So this is very, very important that those three ideas of using it, of the cost of it, and the installation must be almost seamless. And this is where having an ambient solution like a Wi-Fi sensing will take care of all those problems at once, because you don't have any hardware, you don't have any installation or wearables, or even if the elder don't have a smartphone, is okay. And since we are using existing devices in the home, we can bring the cost down, and it's super affordable, only a few dollars a month. And the elder, on top of all of that, can just go about their day, and they don't even know that the solution is there. In one of the pilot that we did, actually, there's most of the elders forget within 1 week that the solution is even installed in their house. So we have a real view of how they live, and they don't feel monitored, or they don't change the behavior so that they look good on the reports. So this is where we think that this type of solution can really resolve all the problem at once.
Kristen, I didn't hear you, but I'm assuming you're asking me the same question, so I will answer it.
Yes, apologies. I must have been on mute.
I think you were on mute. It happens once every meeting, so that was your turn. Did I get it right? You want me to comment on that one? Yeah.
I mean, your solution's a little bit different, being more intended for seniors to use themselves as well. So interested in your take.
Yeah, definitely. We see a ton of challenges for seniors using technology and caregivers who end up being the CTO for their parents. I see this myself, and my parents are relatively young seniors, and it's, I can't figure out how to get my printer set up. I don't remember what my password is. And one of the things that Best Buy has done to actually help solve this problem is a program called Total Tech Support. And Total Tech Support, anybody can get it. You can walk into a Best Buy today. It's $199 per year, and you get unlimited remote tech support and discounts if you need a Geek Squad agent to come out and help you in person, or install a new refrigerator or install a new TV or something like that. But the really cool part about the program is it launched in 2018, and there's 2 million members today. And over 67% of those members are over 65. And we don't track in the same level of granularity the caregivers that are purchasing it, but we know anecdotally that a lot of people, myself included, are gifting Total Tech Support to their parents so that their parents can help get the tech support they need without interrupting someone's workday or a soccer game or something like that. And it works really well for the senior because it's an opportunity for them to get assistance without feeling like they're a burden or feeling like they are old or they don't get it. This is a group where it's their job to give them tech support. And when it's your own family, you feel a little bit like, I'm embarrassed that I don't know how to use that. And we know that embarrassment and that self-confidence that drops when you don't know how to use technology can actually be a barrier to continued utilization of it. So our Lively brand is what used to be called Jitterbug, cell phones for seniors and medical alert devices and all that stuff. That's very much senior design, but we know that's only part of the solution for seniors. And so they actually can use Total Tech Support to get help for any technology they have in their home. And it's been very successful with seniors, and we're seeing really good returns in terms of utilization and satisfaction with that service.
Very cool. So that is something of a more holistic, whole lifestyle approach to helping improve senior tech. So I think Karsten, so Philips has a little bit of a different take on this, also providing different help with end users being a lot of times chronic condition patients. Do you have a perspective to share on this?
So, yeah, COVID has catalyzed this mass migration to the home, and what we see now is we have seniors in the home. We're not only allowing them or trying to enable them to age in place, feel confident in what they can do independently, but also to help the population that's aging, not just at the hyper aging place, but aging at a younger place that's suffering from chronic disease. So, we view the home and the devices in the home as something that we want to connect. So really, Philips is the ecosystem connector in this regard, so that we can harness that data and bring it to the right provider at the right time, the right clinician, so that they can actually action what they see. Now, what's interesting through COVID, but even moving forward, is the home may be the right place, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the right place. And here, our investigation into retail offerings for engagement with patients also allows us to support populations that may have other issues related to receiving care in the home. So, partnerships we have with the VA to deploy our Atlas solution into VFW posts has been very successful. It's allowed veterans to receive the care they need in a place that they go to very frequently and consider probably a second home. And secondly, through wearable biosensors, what our goal is to move beyond simpler parameters like gait, like temperature, and advance the ability to monitor patients holistically in the home, and thereby really treat broader conditions and broader disease states, and ideally apply some AI tools so that those patients can receive preventative interventions versus responsive interventions.
Mm-hmm. So certainly some opportunity there to really widen the scope of what can be addressed in the home environment. Very cool. So let's maybe take a minute and talk about the topic of mental health. So this has been something of a hot topic this year. We've seen that a great many people are feeling stressed and isolated. And as Sarah alluded to really earlier, that this is particularly true of seniors as well, and also others in high-risk categories for COVID. So how is technology and also more traditional solutions such as call centers being used to tackle this issue? Sarah, you were discussing a little bit about some of Best Buy Health's efforts. Can you maybe expand on that a little?
Yeah, it's an area that we have always addressed through just our general services, right? It's sort of, we know that we're helping seniors feel better. We know that we have seniors call and like to talk to the same agent. So we've always known that we have the capabilities to help address social isolation and help people with their mental or behavioral concerns. We have, through our medical alert service today, we have a social care team. So almost all of our payers and providers that use our medical alert service as like a benefit through Medicare or Medicaid, senior living, will get access to the social care team. So that means it's not just, I need an ambulance because I've fallen, which is a totally important thing to take care of. It's also, I'm worried about food insecurity. I am feeling lonely today. I always think of a story where a woman who was suffering from dementia, one of our call center agents sounded like her sister. So she would call in every night and talk to this particular agent until she would fall asleep. And so that social care layer gives seniors one button access to the help that they might need, whether it's medical or whether it's social. One very specific thing we did this year was we started an outbound calling campaign to do this exact thing. And I touched on it a little bit, but we found some clients who were saying, please help our seniors that can't get to adult day centers anymore. And we called them and said, would you like us to give you a call? How are you? And essentially, we got to figure out if we could take these capabilities that we knew existed and turn them into something that was meaningful for seniors and meaningful for our clients and actually help address social isolation. And we just called the seniors every week. And we did some clinical assessments during that time to help measure through the UCLA score on loneliness and through the Duke Social Support Index. But we really built connections with seniors and helped them. And it was an interesting model because every week the senior would have to opt back in. We would say, do you want me to call you again next week? And they all did. We had very, very low churn. And at the end of the pilot earlier this fall, the seniors that the clients didn't continue with, 100% of them said, I would love for these calls to continue. So it was a very meaningful thing for us to do and really insightful to figure out a lot of social isolation and mental health things are viewed as hyper local. Do you have a neighbor? Do you have a outlet right next to you where you can get some assistance? And so we've been trying to explore something that might scale telephonically to help seniors.
Very cool, very cool. And then anyone else have any thoughts on this subject? Feel free to just jump in.
We've seen a dramatic increase across our customer base where customers are actually using what is traditionally a basic PERS device and using it as a speakerphone to either keep in contact with their own family or through some of the different monitoring organizations that are serving the PERS industry here in the United States are actually offering what looks a little like a concierge service, similar to what Sarah just talked about. Obviously, it's very important to think about much more than just the clinical side of the situation and the social side, because with COVID, obviously everyone's sitting at home. So it can be just a friendly voice as opposed to a medical emergency call.
Mm-hmm. Yes, very true, very true. So really, speaking about the different types of solutions that are available on the market, sometimes we see that seniors and family caregivers really do have some different wants and needs when it comes to their independent living solutions. Family caregivers oftentimes like having monitoring solutions that tell them very in-depth statistics around how their family member is doing, whereas seniors would rather have different solutions that really provide convenience in their lives, as well as security and peace of mind. So how can solutions providers really best balance these different needs? Does this balance really change at all when it comes to younger seniors versus older seniors, the relatively healthy versus maybe those with more intense needs? And then Emily, let's go back to you. Can you maybe talk a little bit from your perspective?
Yes, we do see a tendency, when we have some meetings to put all the others in the same bucket. They are the seniors, but it's very important to to see that there's a numerous demographics inside the senior community, as we saw also before in the talk before the panel. So it's important because the needs and the wants will be very different inside the senior community itself. So I think the important concept that we need to keep in mind is that we need to add value to both the caregivers and the elders. And I think that Sarah was talking about that as well. So we need to make sure that both parties will profit out of the solution that they will choose. So for example, in our solution, we have the remote care, of course, where the family or the caregiver can have the information about the health of the elders. But the same platform, the same technology that is installed in the home can also have some home automation features. So the elder that is monitored can also, when you get up at night and want to go to the bathroom, well, the lights turn on. And when you go back to bed, the lights turn off. And he can even brag about it with his friend instead of being ashamed of having this monitoring device and try to hide it. We want them to be happy to have it in the home, and they would need to see the value. It needs to be clear for them that having this device or this technology in their home really brings something for them, as well as the family or the caregivers really see the value of having this monitoring device or technology that can interact with the elder to make sure that both parties are happy at the end of the day with the solution that they chose.
Oh, very true, very true. And then, Sarah, what are your thoughts on this?
I have a lot of thoughts on this. I think that there's a huge disconnect between what seniors would accept in their home and what caregivers might want. I can remember it was probably my first Parks panel. Someone asked, "What about video for watching a senior?" And someone on the I said, "I think we're a long way from that. That's really a high barrier for someone to say, yes, my daughter can can peek in on my house anytime. And someone else on the panel said, well, our data suggests that caregivers really want video pop-in as a feature. And I'm sure that caregivers want video pop-in as a feature. I 100% believe that. I want that for my own parents. And they're completely independent. But the seniors don't want that. And I think it's interesting to think about the different segmentation of seniors, people who are carefree independents versus anxious, health concerned seniors. We've done a lot of work with some of the sickest nursing home certifiable impoverished seniors, where I think sometimes we think, hey, those folks are super sick and their only alternative is going to a nursing home. They'll take anything. You'd be very surprised the barriers that exist. And so I think one of the ways you overcome that, and Ariel, you guys do a nice job of this, where you have something that the senior wants. They want Wi-Fi. They want a security system. They want something that's providing value beyond, hey, someday you're not going to go to the hospital. And then you also get to build in that passive monitoring piece. And I think that's really critical in closing that gap between what a caregiver wants, and whether it's a professional caregiver or a family caregiver, and what a senior will accept and find value in is really all about finding value for the senior.
Very good. And then, Rich, I believe before you were mentioning how there are some very different, there are some cultural differences in terms of what seniors are really willing to accept, and video cameras are much more popular outside of the United States.
Absolutely. We sell a product that is basically an activities of daily living product, and it allows the caregivers to be able to keep track, if you will, of what's taking place in the senior's home. And the output obviously is to be able to see if somebody wakes up at a particular time, if they leave the front door open at a particular time. And we sell that product here in the States very successfully. We call it Care at Home Family, and it really works well for caregivers. We brought that product to the States with the video camera, and quite frankly, the video camera didn't last very long, to be quite honest. Other parts of the world, video seems to be a much more acceptable process. But here in the States, obviously privacy and making sure that you're compassionate, understanding what the senior's needs are, et cetera, is very important. The product that we actually, again, offer today has a couple different sensors, and it has some really great features that people really do like. Some of them, quite frankly, just tell you when your mother woke up, gave you the exact time, said that she got out of bed, or that she perhaps missed a meal or is going to the restroom more often. So extremely valuable information, but as the other panelists have mentioned, obviously privacy is a very big concern, and it's a specific range of seniors that are going to be able to use this in the house, and we're very aware of that.
Very cool, very cool. So I think we have about 10 minutes left for questions. Actually, we can go a little bit over on that for our questions. It's the benefit of being the last panel of the day. So I want to make sure that our audience has a chance to pick your brains. So I think we have one question in asking what your thoughts are on data privacy for seniors aging in place. Are there concerns around sensitive data that's being collected and used for AI? And anyone can really jump in on these. So any thoughts on the subject? Of course, these are people who are signing up for these services, and maybe they're not as concerned.
Sure. I think it's a big concern, and I think it's interestingly notable in the senior population because there is a big history of what I'll broadly call scams, right? And there's a lot of legislation, and there's I remember we famously started an engagement with a large client, and we were doing telephonic outbound outreach calls to say, hey, do you want to join this program? And the week prior, they had said, be aware of scam calls. It's really high, this time of year. And so we had to compete with them, having just been warned that they were going to get scammed, and then trying to convince them that this wasn't the scam. And I tell that story because I think scam stuff is top of mind, both for seniors and caregivers. We did some focus groups that's one of the top 3 concerns, is people are worried that their mom is going to give away personal information and have their identity stolen or their money stolen. The interesting part, I think, and I think we'll see this in younger generations and maybe with seniors too, is the pace of innovation has not totally kept up with, in my personal opinion, the regulation around data, in healthcare. So there, many people would say, I don't really care if my doctor sends me an email that says, here's your lab results, because I'm not that concerned about it, but the doctor can't do it because of HIPAA. And so I think if people could say like, hey, you can share this kind of information, they might say it's more convenient for me to receive this via an unsecure text or an unsecure email rather than having to remember my patient portal login. And I think seniors have the same things where when you add complexity around patient portals, especially video stuff, I think is also really complicated too. And we've sort of run that one down. But I do think there are concerns. And I think when it's couched in the right way of what value you're getting for giving up that data or giving someone access to that data, it can be a little bit easier to overcome. And I think, we can, if we do our jobs well, we can tell a story that's true and real about what you get in exchange for sharing your motion sensing data. Someone knows when you've fallen. Those are things that I think are reasonable trade-offs for people to make who are concerned about the data privacy stuff.
Yes, and we've also seen in our research on smart home products and smart speakers as well that the people who do adopt these technologies are also the ones who are more concerned about the privacy and security issues, generally because they are more aware of them. But still, the concerns are not enough to prevent adoption because these solutions are so valuable to people. So another question, we've seen Medicare and also private insurance really expand the reimbursement this year with expanding telehealth reimbursement, particularly with senior restrictions on telehealth for seniors being waived. When do you think home aging tech is going to be reimbursable by any chance? So smart home tech with prevention benefits and other health benefits.
I think it's difficult to say when, but I will say that what we've witnessed through CMS and even at the state level through Medicaid is a tremendous, and while I think we see analysts assess whether or not this will have a degree of elasticity associated with it, I think we also can completely be confident that it'll never go back to the way it was. And so, when we look at devices that sense, devices that monitor, systems that monitor, and even just engage through telehealth, I do believe that the rate of reimbursement and parity has been supported fairly broadly. And I would expect that, when we think about reimbursement, we sometimes look at reimbursement as just ROI. And really, we need to look at reimbursement as VOI, which is value of investment. And as many of the leading payers, progressive payer organizations have done, or even IDNs that are shifting from fee for service to value-based care, they are seeing that their personal investment to support beneficiaries is worth it. And it's resulting in reduced readmissions. It's resulting in improved satisfaction, and certainly reduced use of the acute care hospital. And I think that's all in line with the ambition of decentralization.
Yes, I think certainly value-based care models align very well with the home health approach and home smart home technologies aimed at supporting seniors and also the chronic care population. I think our respondents, our attendees also agree with you. We've seen a lot of them agree that in-home connected health products are going to be very impactful in terms of improving senior health outcomes. So very promising poll results. So again, at the questions that are coming from our attendees, we see that another one popped up. What do you guys think are really the most interesting insights you get from users? And how do you balance these insights between the utility that they provide and also the invasion of privacy on the part of seniors? So I think anyone, again, can pop in.
Sure, I'll pop in. I think the trade-off is a little bit of what I talked about before. Social isolation is a good example because it's very clear. We can take all the data off a person's phone and say, are they getting more calls than an average person or fewer calls? Are they leaving the house a lot? How many steps are they taking? There is a ton of data that a person doesn't need to self-report. And then we can say, hey, this person is very likely, we should give them a call. They're very likely. Tell their doctor, tell their payer, tell if they're paying privately for it. Hey, this person feels like they are at strong risk for social isolation, which has really negative health outcomes. And the senior in this case might not realize it, right? You don't know when you're sometimes more isolated than someone else, or if you're feeling worse one day than the other. And so I think the trade-off is that we can use that data for good. Now, I know I say that as like a big bad vendor, and there's a huge viewpoint that says this is my data and I should only be able to tell you what to do with it. But sometimes I think you don't know what you can do with it if you're not in the world of data science and figuring out what you could predict or what algorithms could help. And so I think it's incumbent upon us to help explain it in a really easy way for people to understand the value they're getting, so that I don't think we want to get away from saying you need to opt in to this program or opt in to share this data with us. But I do think there's a lot that goes beyond what I would say like normal, just thinking about what you might be able to do with data as a layperson that might be really valuable to you that you wouldn't normally.
Mm-hmm. So again, it's that trade-off between privacy and just being able to get a lot of features that really improve your life quality.
Always a trade-off, yes.
I think, secondly, to Sarah's point, you can also be confused about what is a device that can be supportive and a device that may not be supportive, right? And so I think if we look at the standards that the FDA has set through 510K compliance and adherence for cleared medical devices, we know that those are the devices that are adhering to a standard that's beyond for entertainment only, right? And at that point, the ambition of collecting data is one where aggregating it allows us to identify adverse trends before they become adverse events. So passively, we can then transition to a model of intervention when intervention is necessary. And we also need to appreciate that, there is no recipient for all this data. A PCP can't consume, data from 700 patients, daily, weekly, monthly. They need a system that, through AI or computer intelligence, triages the simple concerns, dynamically routes them appropriately, but then really for those high cognitive interventions where a provider, a physician's needed, really routes it and alerts it in the right amount of time so that they can intervene or at least bring the right care network to that individual. So I think it's always this trade-off of precision and accuracy. And really, I think what we're also recognizing is, thankfully to all the technology that is arriving on the market, we're now seeing organizations allowing that to lead to care in the home rather than care in the hospital. And that really, I think, is what everybody wants to do. We want to walk out of the hospital and be cared for in the home, in our care network with our community of practitioners and also friends and family.
So kind of following up on that point, one of the big changes we've seen earlier, actually, I think at the end of last year, was a widening of different reimbursement rules. So I believe now companies that provide remote patient monitoring services can work directly with hospitals and other care providers and actually take the data and interpret them. And physicians are actually able to get reimbursed for that at a decent rate. Prior to that rule, physicians had to actually interpret the data on their own. Health systems did, which is really beyond their capabilities in most cases. So that, of course, considerably widens the remote patient monitoring market up to quite a few different players. Do you think that now with the changes in regulation and reimbursement that have taken place, are we going to see an increasing crossover between remote patient monitoring and independent living?
That was an incredibly long question typed into the question box. But I have to say that remote patient monitoring has come very, very far, and the reimbursement of it has not only contributed to its expansion, but frankly, it's also done something which has been demonstrated to improve care outcomes for aging individuals, but also individuals with chronic disease, and that has actually put the control and the guidance in the hands of PCPs, primary care practitioners, that now for their patients can supplement direct in-person visits with remote patient monitoring. And we've also seen very progressive organizations, whether it's for readmissions prevention issues or actually just for continuity of care and transitions of care, leverage remote patient monitoring with assisted living and skilled living facilities. And these individuals now benefit because there's a national shortage of providers, whether you're a psychologist, pharmacist, intensivist, geriatrician, or hospitalist. We don't have enough in all the right places. And so for that reason, being able to complement in-person visits with remote virtualized consults, it's giving access to patients where otherwise they wouldn't have had access.
Very cool, very cool. And I believe that's all the questions we have. I'd like to thank you all very much for joining us here today for this discussion. I think we had a very great panel, and I very much enjoyed hearing all of your perspectives and your insights.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Enjoy the evening.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, you as well. And for everyone attending, if you would like to join us now in our networking breakout, that is available in a Zoom link that I believe has been shared in the discussion box as well as on our website. Thank you all for attending this panel.